Why was the Winter War significant? Have you ever wondered how a small nation stood up against a giant and what that meant for the world? The Winter War, fought between the Soviet Union and Finland from late 1939 to early 1940, is a fascinating chapter in history. Let's break down why this conflict was so significant, especially in the context of communism and Joseph Stalin's rise to power. First, the Soviet Union, under Joseph Stalin, had clear strategic and ideological goals. They aimed to expand their influence and create a buffer zone against threats, particularly from Nazi Germany. Finland's refusal to cede territory was seen as a direct threat to Soviet security. This war was not just about land. It was about protecting the communist state and its borders from perceived dangers. Next, the military and political impact on the Soviet Union was profound. Although the Soviet forces eventually forced Finland to concede territory, the conflict revealed serious weaknesses in the Red Army. The Soviet troops suffered heavy casualties and were unprepared for the harsh winter conditions and Finnish defensive tactics. This embarrassment raised questions about the Soviet military's readiness to defend communist interests. Despite the invasion, Finland managed to maintain its independence. Unlike the Baltic states, which were fully annexed by the Soviet Union, Finland's resistance was significant. The harsh terms of the Moscow Peace Treaty forced Finland to give up about 9% of its territory, but they avoided full Soviet control. This outcome demonstrated limits to Soviet expansion and highlighted the resilience of a non-communist state. The international consequences were also noteworthy. The Soviet invasion led to the USSR being expelled from the League of Nations, showing the global condemnation of Soviet aggression. This conflict influenced Adolf Hitler's view of the Soviet Union, possibly encouraging his decision to launch Operation Barbarossa later on. From a communist perspective, this situation illustrated the complex challenges the Soviet Union faced in promoting and defending communism against capitalist and fascist forces. Finally, the Winter War provided practical lessons for the Soviet military and Stalin's regime. The experience gained, despite the high cost, contributed to later military successes during World War II. For Stalin, this war was a harsh but necessary step in securing the Soviet western frontier and asserting communist power in the region. In essence, the Winter War was significant because it reflected the Soviet Union's goals of territorial security and influence expansion. It exposed military weaknesses that led to reforms, preserved Finnish independence against communist annexation, and shaped international perceptions of the USSR during a critical time in Stalin's rule. This conflict tested the ambitions of communism in the face of determined resistance and harsh conditions.